Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Guilbault Girls. Today we have joining with us my husband, Jesse Guilbault.
Hello.
And today's guests, which are Tom and Kristen Perso. Hey guys, how are you?
Hi.
So some of you may recognize Kristen from my recent interview with her about Cherry Blossom Vacations, which is a nonprofit that she founded whose mission is to give no-cost vacation stays to adoptive, foster, and special needs families. Tom and Kristen are originally from Michigan. They moved to Maryland in 2017 and then to Pennsylvania in 2019, where they now reside. They met in college. They married in 2004 and now have 4 kids. Their oldest, Ella, is 16. Leah is 13. Samson is 11 and Aiden is 8. Aiden and Samson joined their family through international adoption back in 2016 and 2013 from China and Uganda, both of which have a disability. Samson was born with club feet and Aiden was born with AMC, which can you please say the name of what he has?
Arthrogryposis.
Okay, and she'll explain to us a little later on in the interview what that is.
Yep.
So as for work, Tom is a VP of IT for Trillium Staffing, and Kristen has been a stay-at-home parent since Ella was born and also homeschools Leah and Aiden. So welcome. I'm so excited to have you both on the show to share about your journey. So let's jump right in. So adoption. Tell us, how and when did you guys decide that you wanted to adopt? How was the experience? Did you get to meet them ahead of time? Was the process long? We want to hear your story. So who wants to start?
Go for it.
I'll start.
Go for it.
So after we had Ella and Leah, we were talking about, what we want to do with, we had 2 girls and what our options were. And Kristen brought up the idea of adoption. And we worked with Bethany Christian Services. And actually the first adoption or option that we had was we looked at domestic infant. And so we went to a meeting around it, and we were surrounded with families or, husbands and wives who couldn't have children of their own and were just wanting to have a child. And we kind of felt, we already have our own kids. It didn't feel right to be in that area. So then we started looking at international adoption, and we went through a couple of different countries. I remember Ethiopia, we started with there, and that program closed and they made some changes. So then they said, hey, would you like to try piloting a Ugandan adoption program? And we were like, well, sure. And I mean, I'd say we were just kind of along for the ride in the beginning of it. I mean, we were like the first family with Bethany to adopt through Samson's orphanage. And it was, we got to see pictures, and there was a family that went ahead of us, and we got to see, they got to meet Samson and sent us more pictures of him. And it was just, we didn't make a lot of decisions of saying we want to do this and this. I think God just opened doors for us, and we just walked through it.
We blindly walked through them.
But every single step that we had to do of the process, this was a long time ago for us, and finances were much tighter, and it was just amazing of, okay, we need to pay this for, this upcoming payment to Bethany. And it was like, oh, this is you get 2 extra paychecks a year, on a biweekly pay. And we're like, oh, this is the month that we have the extra paycheck. And oh, look at that, it's the right amount. So, it was no, it was just there for us. So we had all these affirmations of every step that we were going in the right direction. It wasn't easy, but we had doors opening for us.
How long did the process take from like start to finish by the time, you actually got him home?
We started the initial process in the beginning of 2012. And sent paperwork, like Tom mentioned, sent paperwork to Ethiopia, thinking that we would adopt from there in the fall of 2012, and then changed sometime early in 2013 when we realized that program was closing. And then we were matched with Samson in March of 2013, and then we traveled in May, and he arrived home in July. So about a little over a year and a half. Which is pretty quick. And with Aiden, we decided to adopt again. Initially, we were thinking we would adopt from Africa again, but at the time, Uganda was not really an easy program to continue adopting from. Some things on the Ugandan side, travel was difficult. When we adopted Samson, we were in country for 6.5 weeks total, which was challenging. And so our social worker suggested we look at China. And so we were like, sure, like that's fine. I mean, and China had a much easier travel option. It was much more just like you arrive in country, you do this for a few days, you go to your child's province, you meet them, you get them, you go here, and you're done within a 2-week span of time. And so given where we were in life, when we did Samson's adoption, we took Ella and Leah with us because there was a variety of reasons, but they came with us. They were 6 and 3 at the time. So they spent 3 weeks with us at his orphanage, which was sometimes still we're just like, wow, that was crazy that we did that, And then when we decided to adopt again and we were matched with Aiden, that process, we started in 2015 and we were matched with him in late 2015. So it was a little bit quicker. And we knew that we were going to take our kids again with us. And so, we went as a family of 5 and added Aiden while we were there. And it was just really like a quick trip. It was like a few days in Beijing. We went to his province for a few days. We went to southern China and got his visa and everything. And then we left as a family of 6.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, did you know that both boys had a disability up front, or, did you know before you adopted, or did you discover it during those different milestone ages?
Both disabilities were disclosed, and Samson was born with club feet, and he had them corrected in Uganda through a program, I think through the UK. Doctors came.
Yeah, there was an international program that they were doing pretty much the standard of club foot treatment. They were able to do there, which was great because he took some of his first steps while he lived in the orphanage, and without the treatment that he received, he would definitely would not have been walking when we met him.
Yeah, and so that was, from a physical disability standpoint, that was disclosed and what we expected. Aiden was the same. I mean, they were forthcoming about it, but it's one of those things of you see it from thousands of miles away and you read reports and you don't really know until you get there and then start seeing it. But there wasn't anything that was alarmingly different than what we expected.
Not really. I mean, Samson was pretty straightforward. Aiden, just the nature of arthrogryposis can be a lot more involved. And we had never. Yeah. So club feet is basically your feet want to turn in. That's what they naturally want to do. The muscles pull them in. And so when we decided to adopt again, we thought, okay, well, let's see if we can adopt a child with club feet. Like, we already know this, we have doctors in place, and we just were not getting matched with a child that had club feet. And so, through a random series of events, like the long story that now you look back and go, wow, that was crazy how that happened. But we learned about arthrogryposis, and we saw Aiden and realized that he has arthrogryposis. And it's like, arthrogryposis affects all of your joints basically, and makes them either not want to bend or not want to straighten. And so as much as club feet is pulling your feet in, arthrogryposis does that sometimes in all the joints of your body. Some kids are only affected in maybe their hands. Some kids are only affected in their feet or their knees. Aiden is affected pretty much from his neck down. We've gone through treatment for scoliosis, which is because of his arthrogryposis. He's had surgery on his wrists, his elbows, his knees, his hips, his feet. So he is definitely affected more. We know families now that we've met whose kids are even affected more than Aiden. They are affected not only in the joints, but sometimes like swallowing things and stuff like that, that comes along with your jaw joint, makes it difficult to chew and stuff. So when we were matched with him, we knew that he had arthrogryposis, but it was just kind of like, to what degree? Like, we didn't really know. So there was definitely some, when we met him, we were like, okay, I don't know if this is what we expected or not, but this is the child that we have, and we're going to figure it out. And, we knew he would get good care in the United States, and that some doctor would definitely be able to help us treat him and do that the way that he needed.
Yeah.
And was it hard for the girls to kind of understand or grasp any of it?
I don't
know.
So.
He was honestly, he was almost 2 when we met him, but he seemed very much like about a 6-month-old.
Yeah.
And so to them, so they were, let's see, this was 6, they were like 10 and 7 at the time. So to them, it was kind of just like we had a baby, and, he was like a 6-month-old baby who can kind of like sit up and who's more interactive than a newborn, but like, it was just like a baby to them, so I don't think that they really, it didn't bother them. They just were kind of at the age where they were just like, oh, okay, this is our brother. All right, that's fine. Like, he just does stuff different, or whatever. Yeah. I think it would have been different if he had maybe been like 5 or 6, that they would have been, then the differences would have been a little bit more noticeable. But because he was still so little, he kind of just felt like a baby.
Yeah. And what types of challenges have you faced, as a parent with special needs? I know that we touched in our last interview, tell us how, you ended up here in Maryland. I mean, because that was a challenge you had to face, with all the traveling and stuff. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, your life is doctor's appointments, and not even, it's more so than just doctor's appointments, but it's like a strategy that you're trying to, basically a medical strategy for medically complex kids. Samson is one where he's really kind of in almost like a maintenance mode. So it stretches and making sure everything's good and you're kind of carrying on. But when you have a child that has disabilities, like, Kristen mentioned, like neck down, you're looking at, okay, if we're going to do surgery on this, is there time since they're under to do this surgery? And then if you fix this arm with the mobility that it has, it can give them more range of motion for this thing, but it can affect his like other self-care items. Mm-hmm. It's just so much more than just, break fix type stuff, I guess. And so I think there's that's kind of a long-term weighing of like, are we making the right decision? And it's really hard. It's like, we're going to do the surgery for a kid. Is this the right thing to do? Mm-hmm. Because there's like a clear option sometimes.
Right. So we've been fortunate. So we lived in Michigan, and we had a doctor who treated Samson. She retired shortly after we adopted Aiden. And so it was like, okay, we need to try the new doctor. We didn't really care for her, and she didn't really know his disability very well. And so long series of events. Again, we ended up someone said, you should try AI DuPont in Wilmington, Delaware. And we said, why would we go to Wilmington, Delaware? Like, who wants to go to Delaware? And so we were like, okay, we'll try. And we called, and it just like from the beginning, like they have a PT who knows arthrogryposis like in and out and has seen it for so many years. And she called, I can remember still like sitting in my car, and she called me and she was talking to me. And this was like, we hadn't even set up appointments. And she was telling me, okay, you could try this or you could try that, just being helpful, like not giving like professional medical advice, but just saying like, I know what you're going through and here's some easy things you can do at home. And just getting off the phone and being like, who does that? Like, who spends half an hour on the phone with me telling me, and so we decided to come and try DuPont, and we just kind of rolled it into a summer trip, and we came away and we're driving home on the boring Ohio Turnpike and said, that was a lot better. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to travel? Like, and we kind of just said, we're going to try, we're going to travel. Like, and we tried that for a while. And then we realized, you know what, this is just what our kids need, both for Samson and Aiden. And so pretty much we made the decision to move, and another long, crazy series of events of getting our house sold and all of that. We ended up in Maryland for a little bit and then eventually in PA. But the goal really was to be here and be able to be close enough that we can get to the doctor's appointments. We're close for surgeries because we did a surgery with travel when Aiden left, and he was in one full arm cast and 2 full leg casts. Mm-hmm. And it was really interesting to go through airport security like that between myself and my 12-year-old daughter and him. Yeah. And the TSA people were like, you don't really know what to do with you. I don't know.
Can you walk?
Just no. like like they were just like, we don't know what to do with a person who's like in that many casts. But so it definitely has its challenges, but we both sometimes are like, wow, how did we get, like, we were born and raised in Michigan. We thought we'd always live there. We were in a house that we built that we thought would be our forever house. And now we're not. And we can kind of look around and go, it's crazy that we're here. But we've just seen so many blessings that we've received between the people we've met and just different things that our kids have gotten to do that we never would have done if we kind of hadn't really chosen this whole journey of adoption and disabilities and everything.
Yeah. Back to the kids again. How were they when you guys moved? Like, were they upset? Like, you're having new siblings and now we're moving. And did you have any, how were they with everything? Because that's got to be tough on them too.
Yeah, it was tough. Aiden was, let's see, we moved in 2017. He was 3, so he was little. He didn't really know necessarily. Samson was a little bit older, but not so much that he really understood the whole, I think, gravity of it. The girls, definitely it was sad. We left my parents and family behind in Michigan. My in-laws have moved to Minnesota by that point. So we did leave a good chunk of our family behind. That was really the hardest thing. Fortunately, Tom's employer was amazing with our family. And so he was able to keep his employment, which means that he not often, but occasionally throughout the year goes back. And so it works out really well for our family because he can do sort of a work trip rolled in with a grandparent visit all at once. And we get to kind of all go. And so, it was definitely hard for them. They lost friends and they kept some friends. You kind of do that when you move. I think you guys have moved, it sounds like, enough to understand that too.
Really, we threw everything up in the air so much that everyone just kind of just rolls. And I think our girls, all of our kids just kind of roll with stuff pretty amazingly well.
Yeah, they survived a trip and not even survived it. Like, they, at a young age, enjoyed going to Africa with us. They enjoyed going to China with us.
Experiences for them,
Yeah. So
and
I think
if they don't remember, I'm sure you have pictures in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think some of that stuff has kind of helped them just be like, okay, like we're going to figure this out as a family, and yeah, it's going to be tough, but we'll figure it out. And it definitely helped when we moved to Maryland. We had some connections. Social media helps for sure. You can connect with people in ways that we couldn't have, 15 or 20 years ago. And so it helped us kind of make friends a little bit quicker and find a church and that kind of thing. So that definitely helped.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say some of your children's strengths are and why?
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned, the girls are just resilient, and I think they just go head into any kind of situation that comes up, and they seem to be able just to work through it, which is always amazing to me. And Samson and Aiden, their strengths are they just enjoy life. And like I see Samson, just kind of in any situation can just find something fun to do, which is it's good. It's good.
It has its struggles for sure. Like 11, Yeah.
Looking forward to meeting all of you guys this weekend too, by the way.
Yeah.
Exciting.
And Aiden is one where it was really amazing. Like my employer, when Aiden first came home, I brought him into work one day, like on a Saturday, and he was super quiet when we first got him. And, he's like, "Hey, it's nice to meet you." And he just was like, "No, I'm not having any of this." And, then we moved away. And once Aiden got into a wheelchair, it like gave him some sense of, or like independence. And he just opened up and was just talking to people. And then, so we all came back to Michigan one time for a work trip. And I'm like, "Hey, let's bring the family to work and everyone can see him," because they haven't seen him in a while. And like, my boss saw Aiden and he's like, "Oh, you're so," and he's just talking. And he's like, "What happened to this kid? It's like a completely different kid," and he's taken that and he can just go up to anyone and just start talking. And it is really just like, I think that's going to help him in his life.
Yeah. Going
forward, of like just being able to communicate with people.
And share that story that you put on Facebook too, because I loved that. About the little boy, was it Samson or was
it? Just about at the pool.
Yeah.
I was just thinking when you were asking that, I was thinking, our kids, a strength of all of them is appreciating differences in people. And so, we had this situation. We were at the pool yesterday, and Aiden, because he uses a power wheelchair, and he's Asian and his brother is African and his parents are white and his sisters are white. Like there's a lot to kind of look at, like when we go out in public, like there's a lot to look at. And so often he'll be like, "Why are people staring at me?" And so we have to have that conversation, and sometimes it's just like, okay, and sometimes it's like, it's kind of a bummer, like I really wish people wouldn't stare at me. And so we were at the pool and we got a couple of stares as we came in, and then a family next to us came over, and the mom said, "Hey, do you mind if we come and ask you about your wheelchair?" And so Aiden was like, "Sure, that was fine." And he kind of showed him like, this is how it goes forward and it goes backwards. And he was like kind of doing donuts and putting it up and putting it down and showing the horn and all that, which he loves to do. And the kids were kind of little, but like they just like watched and they were like, "Okay, that's cool." And we chatted for a little bit, and then they went back and they swam and we swam. And I just told the mom, I said, "I really, really appreciate it that you took the time to come over and ask, because, we're thankful that Aiden has a wheelchair. And while I understand that sometimes it looks like, oh man, it's like so sad that you're in a wheelchair, like we're thankful that he has a wheelchair because he needs it and it helps him get around, and he still like does all kinds of amazing stuff." And so it was just really nice that they took the time to kind of just come over and just like have that conversation with him. And so we were just talking last night, it would be awesome. And, we're included in that too, of like, we see people that we don't necessarily understand something about. So it was a reminder for us too, of like, people just want to share their story, and they just want to like have other people understand about them. And so it was really nice for somebody to kind of take the time to do that yesterday for our family.
Absolutely. What's your day-to-day routine? Like, I know a lot of people take things for granted, and and then just like with our regular typical kids, they can do a lot on their own. And I think sometimes people don't realize how much we as parents have to do, the extras that we have to do when a child has a need.
You gonna answer that?
Yeah. With Aiden, it's the simple things that we do take for granted are things that he does need help with. So he can't get out of bed. He can't transfer to his wheelchair. So it's, it's getting him out of bed. He has a hard time even at night. He can get caught up in his sheet, and he'll call and say, I need help rolling over, or take him to the bathroom and just that. And it's as a parent, it's just really, you have to look at it in like a different way to, it's like, I'm happy to be able to help him, but sometimes it's, when it's like the fourth or fifth time at night, of like getting him untangled from his blanket, it's,
you're really tired.
You're tired.
Yes.
You're tired.
Yeah.
But I'm, then you have to remind yourself, you're like, I can get myself out of my blanket. So yeah, you gotta understand the level they're at. So, and it's not something that, you can just go on and like, that's not something that you can converse with other parents with, of people that have, or parents that have children that aren't disabled. They just don't, it doesn't line up. So it's sometimes feels a little bit lonely.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. But so,
it's hard. I mean, it's hard because we had two healthy biological kids before we kind of entered a world of kids with disabilities. And so it is interesting. Like, we were just with friends this past weekend whose son also has arthrogryposis. And he recently has learned to walk in like a pretty short span of time, and he's doing amazing. And so while we're so excited for him, it's hard to like balance that out too, to be like, hey, we're so excited for Grant, but not having Aiden be like, oh man, like I can't walk still, like, and just trying to teach your kids, like, everybody does different things and everybody has different abilities, and maybe you can't do this one thing, but you can do all these other things. And like, you're not less of a person, you're just a different person. Like, I feel like that's been a good lesson for us too, of like, okay, yeah, we do have to help one of our kids with a lot of stuff. Like, we have to help him eat, we have to help him get out of bed, like we have to help him in the bathroom, like, and Samson, we help with other things, like, because he has some other things that he struggles with, that it's like, you're not helping a typical 11-year-old with these things still.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it feels lonely, but I think like in the last 9 years since we've had Samson, we've been really fortunate to connect with so many other families who are either adoptive or have biological kids with similar things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And that's been so helpful for us, because, the days where you're just like, I'm really tired, or I want to like pull my hair out or whatever. And while you're still super thankful for your kids, like, it is hard, to be able to just send a text to somebody and be like, hey, I know you get it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when you were talking about that too, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Faith too, because she has a few friends that also have cerebral palsy, and cerebral palsy is, it affects everybody differently,
Right.
And we have her friend Ellie, and she can walk unassisted. Then we have, Faith needs her walker, her wheelchair. And then their friend Nadia is in the wheelchair. So like, you have all those different levels, and and just seeing, it's good for them to have each other to talk to about too, because they kind of get it, even though some of their needs are different. But yeah. I also wonder too, like, does Faith ever, because I know she thinks, so I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, like typical kids, but just looking at other people with disabilities like she has too, and wondering. And it is hard to meet people and connect with people if because they don't go through it and they don't understand it and live it like we do. And it can be lonely. And that was one of my questions, it's like, do you feel socially isolated at times? And, how do you combat that? You have people around you, but they're really not with you, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's been an interesting thing at work when, you go in on Monday morning, like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And you start to explain it, and then the intricacies of how that was accomplished and what you had to do to get there and everything. Then they're kind of like, okay, all right, so yeah, there were definitely some things going on there this weekend, and some work and all that. I've got a new position at work, and one of the people that I work with has children with special needs and things like that. So I can kind of bounce a little bit, think, how was your weekend? Well, I did this. How was your? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's kind of nice to have that and have that rapport and being able to kind of relax and have them understand a little bit of what the struggles are and what you have to go through to do something either very simple or something that the kids really enjoy. It's not just, hey, let's just pick up and do this. It's okay, let's plan this out. Where is this going to be, and where are we going, and what's the plans if this happens? And
what equipment do you need, and what equipment do you not need, and what's accessible and what's not. Just like to the listeners, we're all getting together this weekend, and we have another couple that's coming with us, and their son is also in a wheelchair, and we're all trying to think of, okay, what's going to be accessible to everybody. There's really not a lot out there for our kids if you really think about it. You know what I mean? No. It's just and we looked at different bowling alleys for people who are listening, and we actually found one on base that we're going to go to that's actually, there's no step, because most bowling alleys you go and you have to
one
step up to go and actually bowl. So you have a kid in a wheelchair or a walker, it's every time you got to get them up, you got to get them down, and it's a lot. And then they feel kind of a little bit like, I'm sorry, mom, when you you're trying to help her up, and my back, I just pull my back, I can't do it again. So, they may have those little things that you put the ball on and push, and you have the bumpers up. That's all great, but you still got the step.
Right. Exactly. And we've had that same thing too with Aiden, where he'll be like, it's the nighttime thing, where it's like, we get to a point where we're like, I'm tired. And he understands that. He'll be like, I'm sorry, I woke you up again, and then it's just like, you feel so terrible. And you think,
and they get on that stance of, with everything, I'm sorry. I'm like, honey, it's not your fault. You're not doing it on purpose. It's not like you know what I mean? Like, you clearly know if you're doing it on purpose and if you're not. It's just, we're tired, and then you have to explain yourself, and then you feel bad that they're constantly saying they're sorry.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess that's the things that, other parents don't have to go. Everyone has their struggle.
Right.
So, and it's not like a pedestal of, hey, we're up here with our issues, but they are definitely unique. And then when you compound them with not only any kind of the disabilities, but for us, like a family, like being multiracial, and we drive a giant van. So like, everyone, like, you pull into a parking lot and everyone looks at you, and it's like, it's just a lot that you kind of pile on all at the same time, that just, it gets rough some days.
And especially like you guys don't have, close family relatives around. So really don't have, and my mother had moved, we were fortunate enough to have my mother for a long time with us. She lives in Florida, back in Florida now, but, we don't have a lot of family that's close with, everyone's at least like, I don't know, 55 minutes. But still, it's still close enough, but you know what I mean? But that can really stop and come and do stuff. And, you're limited to people who watch your kids. So, if you want to go do something, you have to rely on each other, because you don't have anyone else. And then what really got me this year was because Faith is 18. So I'm seeing all the kids that she grew up with, graduate, they went to the proms, they got their driver's license, now graduation, and now this week is everybody's pictures in the college and college, and next, and it's just like, because you have those stages of grief that you have to go through, you know, and
Right.
it's just, it's life. I know it. I'm like, oh, she's going residential to MSB. So I got that, you know, but it's like, we looked at each other last night. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have 3 nights without anybody here. Like we can like do whatever we want, you know, we can go out to dinner, not have to worry about, you know, it's just like, whoa, you know,
It's just so different. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm only going to get a couple of years of this, 2 years, possibly 3, because she can only go till she's 21. And then when she's out, then what? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know, we don't get those luxuries of seeing people like going off on vacations or out doing this or going here and there. Like we will have to care for our kids the rest of our lives. And we have to navigate the system and navigate how to get the best help we can for our kids, which is another like whole thing of, you know, which I would love to rack your brain this weekend too, you know, and even if you know anything, because the kids are getting to that age, you're going to have to start looking for different things, different waivers and different, you know, different things the state offers, you know, kids with disabilities. You know, right now I have personal supports for Faith. You know, it took a long time to get it, but you know, each state is a little bit different on what they offer. And different funding for, you know, therapeutic horseback riding or, you know, just any of those. With the different therapies and stuff that you guys did you get were you able to get any funding, or did insurance cover it, or did you do a lot of alternative therapies? I know that was a lot.
So no, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
So to answer that, in some ways I feel like, well, okay, to answer what have we done for therapy? So the reason we ended up moving to Maryland and then to Pennsylvania is because we kind of moved, like we had this set amount of time that we're like, we need to move before winter comes. Like we don't want to move in the winter. And so we found a house, and we ideally had wanted to live in Pennsylvania. And the main reason was because Pennsylvania has like the special needs healthcare basically that kicks in for kids that have pretty much any type of disability, and there's no income cap for it. And so it kicks in as your secondary insurance, which we were like, okay, like
important.
It's not really our main goal in life to be like, how can we like have the government serve us? Because that's not really our goal. But we were like, we are going to move, and we're moving from the Midwest to the East Coast, and the cost of everything went up, including housing was significantly more. And so we were like, it makes sense for us to move into Pennsylvania because it has the best, really the best financial support for our type of family. Right. And so, now that we're in Pennsylvania, we do get pretty much everything covered for our kids. Our primary insurance through Tom's work covers a lot, but as you know very well, wheelchairs are like $50,000 when you have to get those. And then walkers, and Aiden just got a gait trainer, and those things only last for so many years. And so we're really thankful that Pennsylvania has that program and kind of has stepped up to say, you know what, we're going to help special needs families in that way. And so we don't have to pay for therapy. We don't have to pay for pretty much his equipment that we get, as long as we kind of follow like, okay, like we do need to go certain places, you know, like there are some things that of course, like we need to stay inside of. But thankfully the doctors and the therapists that we are already seeing are covered in that, even though they're in Delaware and we're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Because Maryland, so for Maryland, when people are on Maryland Medicaid, AI does not accept that. So a lot of families that were going there, especially in Cecil County, because it's like right in that middle, they couldn't go there anymore. And that was rough to find.
And and so when we were in Maryland, we were paying, you know, our normal out-of-pocket stuff, and it's expensive because you're hitting basically your family out-of-pocket maximum like every year. And so it's just it was tough. So I mean, as far as like other stuff, I feel like because we're kind of new to the area, and with COVID, like we still haven't gotten a good grasp on that of like, okay, horseback riding. I know of some places that they're really, really expensive, and our insurance does not cover that. Like neither insurance does. And so some of those extra things, you know, I'm like, I would love to have I would love to have Aiden do those. I think Samson would benefit from some of them. So that I feel like, has just been one of those things that it's like, you can only do so much. Like you can only find out about so many things and do so many things. And so we haven't really gone through too many of those things yet.
No.
As far as like extra stuff that is kind of therapy, but kind of fun stuff.
Right. Wow. Yeah. It's a lot. What other questions? So, I mean, let's look at like, all right. How about, is your home accessible? And if there was one thing that you can change or adapt in your home to be more accessible, what would that be? And I hear you do some really amazing stuff, Tom.
Yeah.
You adapt like a lot of things. I heard a few things she was telling me about last interview.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I'm, you can tell I'm a car person. I don't have a car right now because it just doesn't fit into what we're, the time that we have. And but I'm able to take a lot of those mechanical and, thinking outside the box. I always took cars and put different engines in them and souped them up and did it.
That's what I said. These two are going to be. Go ahead.
And it was always, how unique can I make this? And so now, like Aiden was, like he needed a wheelchair. So I took his regular wheelchair and adapted, a powered wheelchair to it through, and it was like, I welded up a frame and did it. And it was like, try this. And there are other things that through our physical therapist was like, think about like PVC pipe was like, you can make amazing things with it. So it was like, let's do this. And it was always, I mean, to me, it was very rewarding of like, I can do this, I can be creative, I can build it, and then be, helpful to our kids and give them a better quality of life. As for our house, I think we have a really good house. We have 3 bedrooms on the main floor and then 2 bedrooms upstairs and a bathroom. So the girls have their own kind of space as girls, which is really great. And then the main floor is is wheelchair accessible. And so I've built many ramps.
Right. It didn't come that way. I mean, like when we bought the house, like it had steps to get into it. And Aiden had just gotten his power wheelchair, like right before we bought the house. So it was like quick build a ramp, and then over time we've
built another ramp and another
more ramps and, like it's, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, our house has an excessive amount of doors. Like our deck has like 3 doors to it, so it's like great. But, with every door comes how easy is it to get in and out kind of a thing. So yeah, you've built a fair amount of ramps.
Yeah.
And we just kind of remodel stuff, the stuff that we don't like. What we have left to do are our bathrooms. So that's going to be a big challenge for us because, it's just been a long time of like, how are we going to do it?
And you're trying to plan for the future. I mean, as the reality is, Aiden's 8, so 10 years to when he's 18. I'm 45, so when I'm 55, I'm thinking about, am I going to be able to pick up a bigger kid? And those are the kind of things that you think about, and those are not the fun things to think about, but it's also the reality. So it's creating an accessible bathroom that, is, a no curb shower, but, we've talked about there's these tracks and can go from his bedroom, and bring him in. And it's, well, if we're going to remodel, we're going to blow out a wall and, let's put in all this track. And it's just, as much as people get stressed out over, hey, we're going to redo our bathroom and they're fretting about the tile and the wall colors. I'm kind of like, please, that's the easy part. We need to like put in a track system to carry a kid that will be beneficial. So
that's like you said too. And it's not just beneficial now as he's 8 years old. This is something that needs to last and be able to still be used, like you said, 10 years down the road. So it's got to be a little bit over engineered, because if you engineer for someone at 8, 9, 10, and kind of seen that with Faith now at 18, getting her in and out of vehicles and stuff like that, it gets not more difficult, but the ways change or how you have to do it or what she has to grab and things like
Mhm.
that. But you want to account for all that, just like in the bathroom. You
Yeah.
have everything there because you don't want to have to redo that down the road just to facilitate growth and change and all that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's really a hard thing about that we found having. I mean, I think you could say it as a parent of typical kids, you know, of just always feeling like you have to do more. You know, it's like, okay, well, if your kid is on a soccer team and you're like, well, I want them to be the best soccer player, so I'm going to do this and this and this. And you could always keep going, you know, like you could get them private lessons and whatever. But it's just like this whole other level or world of like, you know, I always kind of think like, okay, well, we're remodeling. So you've got to think of all these different contingencies, or it's like, okay, we've got therapy and like, did we do enough stretches today? Like we should be doing more stretches. Like
Yeah.
we should be doing more time on the gait trainer. Like it's just kind of this never ending in a whole different way, you know, where it's like, if you don't pay for your kid to have private soccer lessons, like the reality is it probably is going to make a difference. But you think like, if I like just, you know, don't do these stretches, like, is it going to regress from the surgery? And then are we going to need to do the surgery over again in a few years? You know,
Yeah.
like that's the stuff that I feel like is kind of hard, just of the always feeling like you need to do more. And what if I don't do this? And it's just the like life changing.
Yeah. And then you kind of start to feel guilty. Well, you know, you put it off one day because you're tired, you're just exhausted, or, you know, something comes up with one of the other kids. And so then I think sometimes as parents, you know, and after 18 years of doing all that, sometimes I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. I need a break.
You get the same thing where they're like that. Like, I really don't want to do this now.
Right.
And, you know,
right. They don't want to do it. They're like, I'm sick of this.
Or do you like, you know, we're going to do this. And
right.
And you know, it's give and take. Some things that are very small that may not matter, give them a break because they're so burnt, because they live with this every day.
Yeah.
But then there's some things that you just can't pass up because it, you know, it alters.
It's got to, it's got to get done. It's got to get
done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Aiden sleeps at night with 2 AFOs and then a knee brace and then typically like a hand brace.
Yeah. And he was really supposed to be sleeping with elbow braces, and we kind of slacked on that one.
Yeah. But there's some days where like I'm getting him ready for bed and he's like, do I need to wear a hand brace? Like, nah, you're good tonight. You can go without it.
Hopefully his OT doesn't ever listen
I
to
know. But I'm like, but you can't pull this tomorrow. Like we have to put a brace on tomorrow. And he's like, okay. And I think that like, interesting enough, like I think that's something that I've seen that has grown, like made our kids mature. And I hope that I don't look back on this and regret it at some point, but to have conversations and for all of our kids to be in a situation where we're having to make decisions as a family that are can have terrible repercussions if you don't make the right decisions, but it's really made them grown, and that you can have a conversation with an 8-year-old about a brace and they can say, yeah, I get that. I'll wear it tomorrow. You know, is just, it's amazing, but then also a little bit sad too, because I don't want to have a conversation with an 8-year-old and have them understand that, but it is what it is. So it's just, I think it's just part of our family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you said that you guys found a church. Did you found a church since you've been there?
We found a couple churches.
What has been your experience going to the different churches, having kids with special needs? Because I know some churches, they don't have a lot for kids with special needs, and then there are some that do, you know.
Yeah.
So since we've moved this way, and even so with Aiden, I mean, because Aiden has the most significant physical needs, we've actively gone to 4 different churches in the last 6 years with him. So the first one, he was little, he was kind of just like in the nursery, and it was kind of like, okay, this is okay for right now. But we were just having a conversation the other day of that particular church didn't have an elevator, and their older kids always met in the basement of the church. And so we were just saying, you know, we wouldn't have been able to go there with him, or I don't know, it would have had to be really creative or something might have happened. But like, as it was, he would not have been able to participate because they didn't have the space on the main level, and he wouldn't have been able to get down there. The other churches we've gone to have had One church had an actual special needs program and they do respite nights. I will just put it out there for families who are local to this area. It's Willowdale Church, which is in Kennett Square or Jennersville. They do have respite nights for special needs families, and we have not gone because they had some like COVID friendly drive-through pickup pizzas, but like we've heard that they're amazing, like that they're amazing with the kids. They plan activities and stuff. So if families are in this, Chester County, Pennsylvania area and want to do that, that's the church to go to.
Yeah.
On Sunday mornings, it wasn't really a good fit for us. The church we're at now is just smaller and is kind of a church plant. And so they're hoping to get stuff off the ground. But it's a slow process it's just not something, that most people are like, oh yeah, I could just jump right into that. It's kind of like, oh, okay. Like, and they want to sort of like have a team of people that'll be buddies. Well, it's like, you kind of need to be prepared for a child who might have like really mild autism or really severe autism and not be like, verbal and not be able to speak, or a child who might be deaf, or a child who might be in a wheelchair. There's just like this wide range of saying, okay, if we really want to go that way, like it takes some serious planning to kind of go that way. So yeah, I would love to, have walked into a church and had someone be right there and be like, hey,
we've got this.
That would be the ideal. I don't know.
It's possible.
It's possible.
I really do think it's possible, but it takes a team and it takes people with a real desire to be able to kind of dig into it and know the right way to interact with not only the kid, but I think the parents.
Right.
If I went to a church and brought Aiden and they said, oh yeah, we got it, don't worry about it, I'd be like, you don't have it, we need to talk. And it's like, so it's understanding the needs and what they need and being able to adapt and go with it. I mean, like Aiden can't feed himself. So are you prepared to help feed him and in a way that works well for him, and then other kids can understand it too.
Right.
So like, because you get in a class with kids and they're like, why isn't he feeding himself?
Yeah.
Well, and explaining it. So yeah, it's very nuanced. It's very complex, a lot of work, but I think that there is potential and desire for churches to be able to do it.
Yeah, there's definitely a desire. I mean, we haven't necessarily talked to anybody, and I've talked to a fair amount of people who have kids with disabilities and not heard anybody be like, other than like saying, well, Willowdale has this respite night, I mean, and again, everybody's looking for kind of different things. You trade one thing for something else. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you guys would like to share before we wrap it up?
I was looking at your questions. I thought there was,
I know I was jumping all around.
Yeah.
I was trying to track. I'm looking at like, now she's asking that one. Like, wait a minute.
I don't think so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So I
go ahead
to ask you if you can just briefly kind of tell us about the nonprofits. I know that people can look back and watch and listen to your podcast, but if you can just let them know, where to find you and just like your mission.
Yeah. So we started Cherry Blossom Vacations in late 2021. And our mission is to give no cost vacation stays to adoptive, foster, and special needs families. It really was started out of our family loves to travel, and we still travel, but it's really, really hard because it comes with all the things that we've previously talked about that are hard. You just take them on the road kind of a thing, and you're away from home where you have your normal setup. But we know the benefits of that. I was fortunate as a kid to travel a lot. My parents really sacrificed other things to be able to take us on vacation. And so I have those memories, and we have memories as a family with our kids of traveling. And so we really wanted to be able to give that to families who maybe are not traveling for financial reasons, or they're not traveling because it's just too much to be like, I just can't do it. Like, I can't do one more thing. I can't plan anything. And so we're fundraising for a house that will be owned by the nonprofit, and that house will be used for all of those families, adoptive, foster, and special needs families, to come stay at for no cost. You'll go through an application process, and we will pick as many families as we can have stay, and they'll get to stay for up to a week in the house. So we're fundraising for that. And then in September, if all goes according to plan, we're kicking off another side of the nonprofit called Getaways. And we have homeowners who are donating time at their vacation homes for us to use, which is awesome because it's going to expand our reach and it's very little cost for us. So that's no cost as well. And really our goal is for it to be no cost to vacation homeowners also, that will cover the cleaning fees and kind of work on both sides of it to make it easy for the homeowner and easy for families to go, I'm just going to be able to get to go on a vacation. And so that's really our goal. And our website is cherryblosomvacations.org. You can find us on Facebook at Cherry Blossom Vacations, and sometimes on Instagram. I'm not great at Instagram. But mainly Facebook, our website, and you can find email and all that on the website, generally speaking.
Awesome. And then the last question, your word. So Tom, I'm going to ask you what your word is, something that is powerful, meaningful to you. If you would be willing to share that word, what you chose and why.
Yeah, actually, it's changed a couple times. So the one that has most recently come to mind is persevere. So,
and why did you choose that?
I look at the path that we've taken, and we as a family, and I think Kristen and I have hit roadblocks on things that we could easily give up on, and we don't. We work through it. We find solutions to the problem, and we push through it, and just never giving up. So I think if you can put that to the core of what you do, I think you're going to find success.
Yeah. And that's a testament to your marriage right there too. So, and how about you, Kristen?
I struggle with this one a little bit. I think I'm going to pick community probably. I know you have a letter limit on them because I've heard you say that to other people, but
you chose some big words.
Yeah. Can you fit community?
I sure can.
Okay. I'm going to go with that because I feel like that has just been the biggest thing. I mean, we have family members, and we have just, like I said, we have met so many people, other adoptive families, other special needs families, doctors, therapists that we are so thankful for, that have made our life so much better, in tangible ways, and just in intangible ways of knowing like, hey, this one person gets it, and all the little weird things that we have with each of our kids. Like, I can say, we had a rough day with this today, and I know I can like send a text message to this one particular friend. And then just, I think you asked earlier about how our kids did, like with the move, and how do our girls do having the brothers that they have. I think having the community that we found of people who have similar family makeup, similar things that they go through every day has been probably the biggest help for them to say like, you know what, it's not just us. Like, there's a lot of people out there living very similar things. So,
yeah.
Well, I love that. Okay, well, we're going to wrap things up here, and I'm actually going to interview their daughter, Ella. So she will be on an episode as well. So I'm excited. So stay tuned, and we will see you guys this weekend as well. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word Village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.